guys, what's up? It's Joe Raiti from Raiti's Rides. I am here center stage at the 2023 rendition of the Detroit Auto Show. And of course, this is the one that we made the trip from Clearwater, Florida, all the way to Motor City for this vehicle right here. What is this? This is a 2025, first time ever Mustang GTD. But before we get into this Mustang that's been morphed into a supercar, let's talk about what's going on here. The Mustang, it's been that iconic vehicle in Ford's stable, and it's not the only one, but definitely mind-bending in how it changed not only car culture, but also people's culture and how they experienced the automobile. Born in 1964 and a half, made its debut at the New York World's Fair, and now here we are many decades later unveiling a Mustang that nobody could have ever dreamed was possible. Now what's interesting is this is the 120th anniversary of Ford Motor Company, so not only is that a big mark to hit, but also a way to celebrate with this vehicle. Now we already brought you the all-new 2024 Mustang EcoBoost, the Mustang GT, and the Dark Horse from Charlotte Motor Speedway. And if you haven't seen those reviews, make sure you get into Raiti's Rides and search for those and really see how each one is an evolution of this S650 platform. All new for model year 2024. Well, guess what? This vehicle, being a model year 2025, is still a little bit out, but guess what? It's gonna be a similar process to obtain one of these as compared to the outgoing Ford GT supercar. So what does that mean? Can you just go down to your Ford dealership, put a deposit down, and pick one of these up? No, it doesn't work that way. You're gonna have to apply to receive the ability to get an allocation to purchase one of these and be able to have it in your possession. But what I wanna find out is, this car is meant to go after those supercars, the Mercedes AMGs, the Porsche 911 GT3 and GT3 RS, of course Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Aston Martins. What I want to find out is, has Ford done it and gone and taken this Mustang to that supercar level? Let's go ahead, let's dive in and find out. Right off the bat, the attention of detail on the exterior is mind-blowing. And one of the things to definitely point out is none of it is just for show. This is definitely show and a ton of extra go. At the front of the business, you're gonna see that wider track, wider body. And I know a lot of people like to personalize and customize their Mustangs. You're gonna be able to do that through the application process and how you're able to pick out the details of color, interior choices and all that. Well, guess what? When it comes to one thing a lot of people like to do is add carbon fiber. You might add a carbon fiber splitter, maybe a carbon fiber wing. Guess what? The majority of this Mustang GTD is made out of carbon fiber entirely. So when you look at those massive fender flares and you see that venting, yes, it looks good, but that's there for the aerodynamic process and flow of this vehicle. And those fenders are carbon fiber themselves. So we're looking at maximizing weight and getting rid of excess weight, and also how it's distributed. Now what's fascinating is that the Mustang GTD is actually based off the race car that Ford is gonna be racing in series like the IMSA WeatherTech series here in the United States in the GTD class. That's why they call it GTD, Grand Touring Daytona, or Gran Turismo Daytona. That's what GTD means. It's also gonna be racing in series around the world. For example, WEC, the World Endurance Championship. So this is a product that, yes, is a race car, but they're taking the race car and they're actually able to do more with this car because there's no rule book, and you can enjoy this on your favorite twisty roads, go show some supercars up at a track day, or just cruise into Cars and Coffee and have people's jaws drop. But that's just some of the magic. I'm gonna explain a little bit more of what's going on. You'll see that S650, the new design in the headlights, they brought it in with your tri-bar LED daytime running lamps. I love that fender flare, and the way that this show lighting is here at the Motor Show, absolutely stunning. Now, when you work your way down, you're gonna have massive splitters. Now, the bottom one is that main splitter, but you're also gonna have that canard diplane. This is meant to give us the downforce, and we wanna stop air from going underneath the vehicle, because what happens is when air goes underneath the vehicle, that creates lift. We don't want lift. We want the car to stick to the track. And guess what? The engineers at Ford, and it's interesting because they've been working on this since about 2021. So this isn't something that they just said, hey, we're coming out with a new Mustang, let's slap this together. They've been working on this since 2021 in a Skunk Works project with a main group of designers and engineers that wanted to see this car come to fruition. So this downforce and everything, fully functional, and like I said, underneath the vehicle, you're gonna have active shutters. And I'm not talking about efficiency for fuel necessarily, I'm talking about efficiency for downforce. So we have the drag reduction system. There's doors underneath the front of this vehicle that are gonna open and close. Just like when we get to that massive rear wing, same thing, it's gonna move. And this is some of that magic that they can't run on the race cars. So when Joey Hand is at Daytona, he may wish he had some of this technology, but the rules confine them to not be able to do that. They try to keep everybody in check, right? It's not just an open rule book, but on the road, it is an open book. Now, as we come across the front, you can see the lineage, the connection to the S650, but it's just been totally blown in a very good way. Fully functional upper grille. I love the wire mesh finish. You have your dual, excuse me, inlets for that engine, and we're gonna talk about what's underneath the hood in a second. Love the way you have the carbon fiber pony right there. So much history, so many iconic cars. And it's interesting to think, I remember back in high school, I got excited. My mind was blown when I saw the first ever Fox body SVT Cobra. And I was like, whoa, look at that thing. I couldn't imagine being in high school now and looking on the internet or magazines or watching Raiti's rides and seeing this and being like, whoa, what a total world of difference. On the lower portion, you'll see all the extra heat exchangers and everything, more ventilation. Love the way they do the massive split. And like I said, this is fully functional, tested on the racetrack, and this is stuff that really is gonna show that connection to what they race and what you drive and how it could even go even further than that. Now, as we rise up, that full carbon fiber hood, Lori's gonna do the best that she can to show those massive heat extractors up top. Also, for that airflow, you have the air coming in through the front, being dragged out the top, being dragged out the bottom through those active doors. Of course, we have to have the hood pins. We need to keep that buttoned up as you're at your favorite racetrack. Coming around the bend, I want to talk about what's underneath the hood. So what we're looking at is a 5.2 liter supercharged V8. So for people who are like, they're not doing a supercharged V8 yet, guess what? 5.2 liters supercharged V8. Now, if you have a Shelby GT500, this one has more. So your Shelby GT500 is 760 horsepower. This has over 800 horsepower. Another thing that's gonna be different is, guess what? You have a dry sump oil system. What the heck does that mean? That means you have your oil in a separate container that's not gonna slosh around. So when this is taking those high G forces at tracks, at your twisty roads, the oil is gonna stay nice and stable so it's not sloshing around in the bottom of an oil pan that could cause oil starvation. That's old race car technology that's in this vehicle. So you have that system. Now, when we come around the side, let's talk about what's going on wheel and tire. You have the first ever magnesium wheels on a Mustang, 20 inches in diameter. I love the tinge that they brought to them. And then you'll notice that we have those Michelin high performance Cup 2R tires. Get ready for this one. You can see that behind the magnesium wheels, you have those carbon ceramic rotors. On the race car, those are not allowed. So on the race car, you actually have steel rotors. On this car, not only do we have more horsepower than the race car, but you also have those carbon ceramic brake rotors. pizza-sized, two-piece, and then look at those calipers. Absolutely ginormous how they pop from behind that magnesium wheel. Now, if you're wondering, well, Joe, okay, this has Cup 2Rs. What's the size? Up front, not in the back, up front, 325 on the width. I don't know any other production vehicle that's gonna have that kind of width at the front. Some cars struggle to get 325s on the back from the factory, 325s up front. Another thing is when we talk about adaptive suspension, it's not what you've experienced already. We're talking about dual spool valve technology that was developed by Multimatic. And guess what? Multimatic is going to be putting all the pieces together and really making this whole GTD come together. Multimatic shouldn't be a surprise to many Ford aficionados because those are the ones that built the Ford GT that just went out of production. So it kind of makes sense that they're the ones that developed the dual spool valve technology that you see on a lot of high performance vehicles, Formula One cars at one time. Now you have adaptive dual spool valve technology. You could actually drop the ride height all by the mode that you go in. That to me is mind blowing. Now, coming down the side, I'm gonna see if Lori could kind of swing around and show that back portion of this front fender. Absolutely wide open, carbon fiber. It's gonna be able to drag that aero. So this isn't for brake cooling. This is actually for bringing that aero out the fender and down the side of the vehicle. It's interesting because there are some cars that have done this. One of them is the 911 GT3 RS. But if you look at the 911 GT3 RS, the opening might be about that wide. This one, not only is it wider, but it's also longer from front to rear of that fender opening. And that's one of the games that they're playing, going after the best for that record time at the Nordschleife. Right now it's held by the 992 GT3 RS. It's a 6-minute, 49-second lap. They want this to break it. They want this car to be that production car to break the record at the Nordschleife. Now coming down the side, carbon fiber roof. What's the benefit of all this carbon fiber? Not only is it saving weight, but when you have a carbon fiber roof, we're actually lowering the center of gravity. We've widened the track, the space between the wheels at the front and the rear. That's gonna allow this thing to grip through the corners like as if they took Gorilla Glue and just put it all over the tires. So that's what they're doing. It's a complete package. It's not just about throwing extra horsepower and making it look like some Hot Wheels car that you had when you were a kid, which this thing, I'm telling you, is the ultimate Hot Wheels car. I could see this on shelves. I could already see the 118 die-cast. I could see you get your signature series, the whole 9 yards. Now, as we work our way back, look at what we have here. More aero. So coming into that flared out rear fender, and we're gonna talk about why this is so flared in a few seconds. You're gonna have your functional aero coming into the rear because guess what? Another first time in Mustang history, we have a transaxle. What does that mean? The transmission is not actually bolted to the back of that 5.2 liter V8. The transmission is at the back of the car. What that's gonna do is help give this car perfect 50-50 weight distribution, but it's not a 7-speed DCT. This is a specifically developed 8-speed DCT, dual clutch transmission, Tremec, in this GTD Mustang. So you're gonna bring, Lori's gonna show off those vents, the wire mesh finish, absolutely incredible. I'm gonna preface this again. I know there's been some confusion. This is a street car that's based off the race car. So this is something you can drive on the street. There was some confusion when we did the virtual unveil. This is the street car. Now, when we come to the rear of the vehicle, of course, 20-inch magnesium wheels, but the big story is we're talking about 345s on the rear. What is that like? Think about a steamroller. You got 2 steamrollers on the rear end of this vehicle, extra grippy Cup 2R tires. Obviously, it's rear-wheel drive. And I know there was a lot of chatter of this being mid-engine. Think about it. They didn't have to do mid-engine because with having the engine up front, transmission in the back, and all the other things that they've done balance-wise, 50-50. That's what you want. Perfect weight distribution, and just the fact that such a wide tire and that wide fender, it's unbelievable. I think right now I would clean this car for free just so I could rub my hands all over it. As we rise up, one thing that's a little hard to see that I can't wait to show you more once we follow the story and get to that production time for the GTD is we have a push rod suspension system. So normally your shock absorbers are here on the rear, just like they are on the front at each corner. On this vehicle, the rear shock absorbers have been taken and we now have a horizontal push rod setup. That's technology that you find on the Le Mans prototype cars that's in this Mustang GTD. Go over your friend's house that has a 911 GT3. I guarantee you the shock absorbers are down here. They're not gonna be in this rear area. Now, the downside is you basically lose your trunk. But what's gonna be wild is that you'll be able to see the system, not only when you're in the car, looking in your rearview mirror, but people at car shows, when you're driving around, will be able to see that system through the rear glass. That, to me, is pretty freaking awesome. Now, as we come to the rear, you're gonna notice that swan neck design, and they've taken it to a next level. Normally, you would find the wing a lot of times attached directly to the trunk lid. What they actually did was the rear pillar, you have that swan neck, less drag, same amount of downforce. And what's crazy is with this wing, like I said, this is something that the race car drivers wish that they could run with the rules in the IMSA WeatherTech series. This is your drag reduction rear wing. So basically what this is gonna do, right now it's in that straightaway setup. What's interesting is compared to the 911 GT3 RS, the 992, it's the rear plane that comes up and down. What's wild about this one, it's actually the larger piece of the rear wing that drops down to give you more downforce when you're in the corners, when you're braking and everything. So that is that active aero. And by having the swan neck, this is stuff that they learned at racetracks. This creates less drag than if you had it flipped the usual way. Now, as we carefully, slowly drop down, Lori's really putting in the work here because this is worth it. We get to the rear of the car, like I said, more that you could clearly see that rear fender area, absolutely stunning. And then when it comes to aero, a lot of people think it's like, oh, you slap a wing on it, there's your aerodynamics. There's so much trickery and magic happening underneath the vehicle. We talked about the doors at the front. Check out the rear diffuser. That's another area where air coming underneath the vehicle sucks the vehicle down and you're not sacrificing a ton of drag by having the aero underneath the vehicle. Do you see these two big, large openings here? That's titanium. Titanium full exhaust from a Kropovich. I know a lot of people like to call it Akrapovic. It's a Kropovich. They've been making exhaust for motorcycles, high-performance motorcycles, cars, and everything in between. They actually made the exhaust, titanium exhaust, for the Ford GT, and here it is on the Mustang GTD. And this is an active exhaust. You could keep it a little quieter, keep the peace with the neighbors, or you know what? You may have some of the best neighbors in the world that want to hear this thing, even if it's at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and just let her rip. I think I'm gonna go that direction. Now, on the rear, like I said, that trunk is not really a functioning trunk to put things in. What we have is we actually have trunk pins, so you have hood pins. How many production vehicles do you know of have trunk pins? I would say probably none, except for this GTD. Love the way they not only have the GTD badge in the center, but you could see more cooling, because part of the tricks of having a transaxle is now that it's at the back of the car, how do you bring the cooling, like air cooling and stuff? That's why we have that development of the cooling at the back of the car, plus it just looks downright sexy. And then obviously we could take a lower look at what is happening underneath the vehicle. But I don't know about you, I kind of went over this whole vehicle trying to think of what did they miss, and I'm not seeing anything. Even the way that they designed the rear trunk lid, we're talking about air coming off the carbon fiber roof, going across the rear glass, and then going to bring cooling for those heat exchangers out the back. Very, very substantial what this car represents. I know Jim Farley, Jim Owens, and the rest of the team have been dreaming about doing something like this, but how crazy is it that in today's world, we could see a manufacturer, especially an American car manufacturer, take an iconic nameplate, the Mustang, and bring it to a level. I mean, I know we've had Boss 429s, Boss 302s, Shelbys, and everything else, but to make it to where this is it, this is gotta be the pinnacle for a Mustang. But hey, you never know what the future is gonna bring, but let me know in the comments section. Are you in awe as much as I am with this Mustang GTD? Do you consider it to be a supercar? One last thing I want to leave you with. On the interior are titanium pieces. Those titanium pieces are recycled from F-22 Raptors. I mean, can we say anything else about that? We're not talking about C-130s. We're talking about F-22 Raptors, recycled titanium on the interior. I can't wait to get inside. We're gonna be bringing it to you, I promise you that. But definitely want to thank everybody with Ford Performance for allowing us to have access center state at the Detroit Auto Show. Let me know in the comment section. I know they're gonna be looking, so put your comments in there about what you think about this Mustang GT. Is there anything that they missed in your eyes? I can't see it, so I'm very curious to see what you're gonna say. Definitely put that in the comment section. But if you're new to the channel, you're on your way out, hit that subscribe button. I promise you it's worthwhile. Come back for more. If you are a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Raiti's Rides family. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for LG Raiti. Lori working that camera like a champ. It was very tricky in this situation with this turntable display, but she made it happen. So definitely show her some love in the comment section. And just like always, guys, I'll see you on the next ride.